Welcome to our third Bayanat حبرية talk series. Our guest speaker today is Wakeem Zeydan, who works as a cultural consultant, communicator, facilitator, crypto investor, and a Web3 digital transformation expert. He has co-founded Silverline Company, which is a non-profit cultural development project that leverages technology to improve the cultural and creative economic value for communities. And he has given many public talks in notable places, such as World Conference of the Creative Economy in Dubai World Expo 2020, Munich Blockchain Stampede, and TEDx Cust. He has also conducted workshops on intellectual property using blockchain, Web3 for corporates, innovative business strategy, ideation, and communication. Now Wakeem will proceed with giving his talk discussing NFTs, Arabic typography, and licensing.
Thank you, Hussein, for the introduction, and thank you, Bahia, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure and honor to be among the speakers for this year's Type Lab. And hello, everyone. So today I'm going to be basically taking you through three things. One is intellectual property management for creatives. The second is blockchain, and then how they both get combined in order to help with type design in the future. So to start with, I always like to kind of define what is intellectual property. And by definition, intellectual property, or as the name states, it is the property of your intellect. So it is a product of your human mind. And because it is the product of your human mind, it is therefore something that's intangible. It's something you cannot touch. And because it's intangible, then it's hard to protect, it's hard to manage, it's hard to work with. But as creatives, our livelihood really depends on it. So it's very important to find ways to make sure we protect it and we manage it regardless of its intangibility. So why do we really need to do that? I mean, in this time and age, internet is an integral part of our life. And with its presence, our work, be it being on it, so it's in a public domain, it's more vulnerable for it to be stolen, copied, and even manipulated. So therefore, it's very important to find ways to protect and manage it. If you're a product designer, for example, and you're creating 3D items, before going to any manufacturer, you actually need to make sure that your work is protected, your design is protected before handing it to any third party to create and prototype it. If you're working on something and you need advice with an expert that you probably don't know, so because as creators, we tend to kind of get advice from the people that are close, people we know, people we trust. But sometimes you need to find experts on a specific project that the people you know can't help you with. So it's important to always protect your idea before actually going and getting expert advice. If you're providing services, for example, as a type designer or as a graphic designer, you'll have clients. And you need to pitch ideas for certain projects. So how do you make sure your ideas are protected in case the client doesn't choose them? If you have a public presentation, such as this one, which took a lot of work to put it together, so that's an authored presentation. How do I manage to protect it from it being recorded and put out there and so on if it's done without my permission? If you're collaborating with others on a project, how do you evidence that what each one has contributed to the project? And based on this contribution, there's a fair share in terms of distribution of royalties if the project gets monetized. And if you're a student, like in case of most of the audience probably tonight, how do you protect your work from a professor? I myself, as a student, my work was copied by my professor, and he eventually got a prize for the work that he copied from me. But I couldn't do much at the time, and that was probably 20 years ago. So these are some of the reasons why it's important to manage and protect your intellectual property. And of course, there are lots of cases that can be put forward, but these are like the essential ones for creators that we kind of face on a daily basis. Now, we've defined intellectual property. We've reasoned why we need to protect it. What are the different types of it? So the first type is a trade secret. And a trade secret, by definition, is something that you don't want to expose to the world, something you'd like to keep secret. Most of the times it's recipes, it's probably codes or formulas and what have you. you kind of keep them as trade secrets in vaults or in a way that nobody can check or have access to. Trademarks, such as logos, design of packages, signage styles, what have you. All this stuff are part of intellectual property, and they need to be protected one way or the other. The third one are patents. And patents are basically, they cannot be just ideas, they have to be formulated into something. So it could be a way to produce a machine, a product. It could be a design of an element that has a specific function. It could be a recipe, a formula for a vaccine, a genetically modified plant, but it cannot be stuff like, things that happen naturally. For example, a mathematical formula. You cannot patent a thunderbolt or a lightning. You cannot patent how you kick a ball or ride a horse. So stuff like that cannot really be patented. So that's something to take into consideration. And the fourth one, which is the most common one used by creatives, is copyrights. Now, copyrights are basically called author's rights. Some people say there's something called designer's rights, but technically there's no such thing as designer rights. Designer rights are author rights, and they fall under the category of copyrights. And in general, anything that is authored, whether it's literature or art or design or film, music, what have you, they all fall under copyright. Now, when it comes, as we said, intellectual property is something that is intangible, but eventually we need to manage it. I'm not a legal expert, but I've spoken to lots of lawyers to try and understand how intellectual property works. Again, because my livelihood depends on it as much as your livelihood also depends on it. You need to make money out of your ideas. So from my conversations with all those legal experts, it turns out that there are 3 basic rules that we need to follow. If we follow those, then you'll be able to create proof of ownership of the work. The first rule is basically transforming the intangible, which is the intellectual property, into something tangible. This transformation basically means that instead of just keeping it as an idea in your mind, you need to jot it down on paper, put it on a file, create a model out of it. So any form of transferring the idea into something on paper or a digital file is considered transforming the idea from something intangible into something tangible. That's one. The second rule, it's important to keep a trail of evidence of your work. So your creative process, from the minute you sketch down an idea to the final output, there's an important element of documentation of this whole process. You need to have as much evidence as you can to prove ownership of the work. So it could be your sketch on your notebook, it could be a voice note, it could be a WhatsApp conversation, it could be a recording of a video, it could be a mood board, a research you've done, an NDA you signed with a manufacturer to do a prototyping, what have you. All that is considered evidence in the creative process that proves the ownership of your work. On top of that, the third rule is that you need to have a public record of this creative process. And what we mean by public record, it means that we need to have a record, a سجل عام, basically, where it says that this evidence belongs to Wakeem and it is a so and so and so and so, right? So following those 3 rules is important in order to maintain and protect your intellectual property. A simple example to this is some artists who practice it in the Caribbean and even in Jordan, I realized they also applied some script writers, and they call it the poor artist's IP. So what those guys do basically is that, for example, if they're musicians, they would record the music on a tape. So they transformed the intangible into something tangible. Then they put that recording in an envelope, they seal it, and then they go to the mail office, the regular mail, and they mail it to themselves. So what they've done here is basically transform, as we said, the intangible into something tangible by putting it on a tape or a CD. Second, they created an evidence. So there is evidence that it's theirs because they mailed it to themselves. So there's sole ownership of that evidence. So they mailed the whole mail to themselves. And then the third thing is that in the mail office, the actual envelope that was sent has a stamp and has a reference number, and that is basically recorded in a public record of the mail office. So they've applied those three rules. So if somebody copies their music, they have a sealed evidence with a public record of it that is theirs that they can present in court. So this is basically the very simple way to understand and manage your intellectual property on a daily basis. It has to be something that you do really as part of your creative process. It's simple, doesn't require much work, as long as you keep your documentation in one place and have a clear trail to it. So having said that, this is where blockchain comes in, okay? So what is blockchain? Many people, including myself, when the whole buzz started, I thought blockchain was pretty much cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. But in fact, it's much more important than that. So blockchain in principle is a public ledger. It's a place where you maintain public records. So think of it as, when you go to a government office, you have those big books, big black books where, usually they're very dusty. They open them and they record those transactions on. Think of blockchain as this big black book. And this big black book has an endless number of white pages. And everything that's recorded on it, every transaction that's recorded on it, cannot be edited nor deleted, which makes it the best public ledger system that you can have currently. It's secure, cannot be manipulated, doesn't burn, doesn't rotten with time, and basically it's decentralized. So it's managed by thousands, if not millions, of users that are interconnected with each other. So there are multiple thousands of computers that are connected to each other, and those computers are basically recording those transactions and validating them. So that's why it's secure in a way where if one computer, let's say, defaults in validation, there are 1,000 others that validate the transaction and cannot be manipulated. So having said that, imagine now that you managed to transfer your intangible idea into something tangible. So you started sketching. You started collecting those files, and you can upload those files into something like a Google Drive or a Dropbox. And once you upload those files, you have this trail of evidence. You will then stamp them as if you went to a notary, كاتب عدل. They stamp them with digital stamps. They're called timestamps, such as a Bitcoin timestamp, a European Union timestamp, or a Chinese timestamp. And this stamping, okay, is then recorded on the blockchain, which is a public record. Now, such a tool is something we offer at Silverline. It exists, it's there, and it provides a very cost-efficient and streamlined way for creators to make sure they have an easy trail of evidence that is officially stamped by government authorities such as the EU and China, and that there is a public record of it on the blockchain that cannot be manipulated. So you have strong proof of ownership of the work. So now that we understand what blockchain is, blockchain now is transforming the world, where it sits at the core of what we call Web 3. So when we say Web 3, obviously there was Web 1 and Web 2. Web 1, I mean, most of you are much younger than me. I managed to live through Web 1.0, which were basically basic web pages, HTML, e-commerce. We had a browser called Netscape. Yahoo's still alive. We used to chat through ICQ, and so on and so forth. So it was like basic internet where you have information and you just go there and read that information. Web 2.0, which is the one we're currently using, it's basically focused on social media, user-generated content, mobile access. So mobile phones play a very important role in Web 2.0. High-quality cameras, apps. Your data is centralized and monetized by corporations, and that's a very important thing to know, because Web 3 kind of is an anti-thing to corporate monetizing your data. There's high-speed communication and global internet access. As we speak today, Web 3.0 is happening. Blockchain sits at the core of it. And we have other things that are layered on top. So we have something called the semantic web. And this is basically the ability of the machine to read internet data and interpret it. Okay, such as AIs, all right? Artificial intelligence is able to read internet data. You have decentralized app on the blockchain. I'll explain that in a bit. You as a user now can monetize your data. You own your data, and it can no longer be centralized by governments or corporates. You have NFTs, non-fungible tokens, VR, virtual reality, and augmented reality, what a lot called now the metaverse. You have permissionless blockchains, you have artificial intelligence, and you have interoperability, so cross-chain work. And I'll explain those in the next slide. I'm sure that most of you probably have heard of Bitcoin, but in general, we have 3 types of blockchains. The first one is called the layer 1 blockchain, and they are like the infrastructure or the mother of all blockchains. And the most popular ones are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Avalanche, and Solana. So these blockchains are basically, they form the essence, and each one is separate from the other. So we have a blockchain called Bitcoin, where you have its own set of users that are connected and doing the registration of those transactions. You have another one, which is Ethereum, and it's the most popular for NFTs, basically, where you have its own set of computers connected to each other and creating this public ledger. Same thing Cardano, same thing Avalanche. Now, those blockchains, the layer 1 blockchains, face 2 issues. One is their scalability, and 2 is that they are using a lot of energy as well. So how are these being solved? They're being solved by creating another layer on top of them for the layer 2 blockchains, 2 of which are Polygon and Aztec. And these layer 2 blockchains are making the transactions faster and saving also on energy in order to help with the climate change issues and consumption of energy. The third layer of blockchains is cross-chain. So layer 1 and layer 2, each one has its own separate network. They don't talk to each other. You cannot transfer data between them. So what now is being created is a cross-chain. So they're creating blockchains where they connect Bitcoin with Ethereum, with Cardano, with Avalanche, and so on and so forth. So these are now very important blockchains that are working together in order to bridge between the others. And this is important because, again, public ledgers are recording all those transactions, but there needs to be the ability to read from one public ledger to the other because everything is validated on all. So having said that, and I hope it's clear so far, there are a set of tools that work on the blockchain. Tokens. So each blockchain, be it Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, creates 2 types of tokens. One is called a fungible token, which is basically cryptocurrency. So fungible token means that one token in value equals another token, as if $1 equal $1, 1 sterling pound equal 1 sterling pound. So that's a fungible token. A non-fungible token, otherwise known as an NFT, is basically a token whose value differs based on what's connected to. So for example, now digital art has NFTs. They're connected to an NFT, to a non-fungible token. The value of that non-fungible token differs based on the artwork. But what is really NFT in relation to that artwork? If I were to explain it in simple terms, think of it as a deed, like a deed of a property, sak milkiye, okay? So that NFT is basically the deed that authenticates you are the owner of that artwork or that item or that asset that is connected to it. That asset could be digital and it could be physical. The second tool in blockchain is wallets. So today, if I look at my wallet, my regular wallet that I have in my pockets, I open it, I have money notes. So these are fungible tokens. I have credit cards. These are fungible tokens. I have the picture of my family. That's a non-fungible token. I have a membership card to a club. That's a non-fungible token. So all those tokens need to sit basically in one place. Like in real life, they sit in my real life or physical wallet. They need to sit in a crypto wallet. And the most common crypto wallet is MetaMask, okay? And there are others that are popping up, like Phantom and Yoroi. And each wallet is kind of connected to its own type of blockchain. So MetaMask is on Ethereum, Phantom is on Solana, Yoroi is on Cardano. So each blockchain, it issues its tokens, and those tokens are kept in its own kind of wallet. Then you have the exchanges. So the exchanges is like any money exchange that you go to, where you take your dollars or your guinea, and you exchange it for another currency. Same principle, but the whole point of them is where you take your dollar and you buy with it a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or a Cardano, okay? A fungible token, basically, not a non-fungible token. And these exchanges, the most common one is Binance, you have Coinbase, and in the Arab region, there's one called BitOasis, it's based in Abu Dhabi. So you always need to have an account on an exchange platform where through your real money, you buy crypto money. And with that crypto money, you can then buy NFTs or non-fungible tokens. So that crypto money goes to your wallet, and with your wallet, you buy your NFTs. Another tool that is commonly heard of is smart contracts. Now, the word contract here is a bit misleading. So a smart contract is not really a contract per se, where it's legally binding between people, but it's rather a software. So when you go and buy a Bitcoin, or when you go and buy an NFT from somebody, okay, there is an exchange, okay? Now that exchange in real life is usually handled by a middleman or an agent or even a bank, okay? A smart contract basically replaces those. So it manages the buying and selling between users on those blockchains. So whether they're buying and selling tokens, fungible tokens, or non-fungible tokens. So it's a line of code with a set of rules that any coder can put in. And based on those set of rules, it will govern the buying and selling, or the exchange, or the transaction that's happening between two people, eliminating the role of a middleman. Then another tool is called the decentralized app. So decentralized apps they look like regular apps that you have on your phone. But instead of those apps being hosted on the cloud, on servers that belong to, for example, Amazon or Google or what have you, those apps are stored and function on the computers of the users of that specific blockchain. So those apps really aren't controlled by the corporates, they are controlled by the users or by the community of the specific blockchain. And then you have the storage of the files. So any file created, so for example, you have a digital art piece that you want to create an NFT for it. This digital art piece or this file needs to be stored somewhere, right? Usually you host it on a Dropbox or you host it on the cloud on a specific server. But in the case of blockchain, there's something called a decentralized storage. Again, the users with their computers, they provide a small space where files are saved on and validated of where they are and who they belong to. So that decentralized storage is important. And now the geeks of the industry, I would say, they're talking about something called the permanent web. So this storage has to have, or has to be present till infinity. So they're talking about how can we have a permanent web, a permanent internet for life, so that those files don't disappear, they're always stored. So that is that kind of discussion happening now. So with those tools in mind, understanding blockchain and install intellectual property and all that, how does it really help the creative economy or the creator economy in our case? As we started off with this presentation on intellectual property, it really helps you out with identifying or authenticating your ownership of your intellectual property and managing the royalty of it. So with NFTs, you can actually set in the line of code of them that I want to get 10% every time my work gets sold and resold. So as you know, if it gets sold 1,000 times, every time this happens, I want 10% of that sale. So that way you're able to track and see who are the owners of this work, and every time this transaction happens, automatically the smart contract, which is the middleman, will take your cut and put it in your crypto wallet. So there's a nice financial sustainability to your livelihood, I would say, as a creator. Then the second important thing is that you're able to create community support and funding. So now you don't need a publisher to publish your book. You don't need a publisher to publish your type. You can actually do it on the blockchain by yourself, through the support of your community, through funding from them by providing you with by buying your NFTs, or even co-sharing the work in terms of co-ownership. And I'll explain how that works too. As I said, you can also have financial sustainability. So through the smart contracts, through decentralized financing, you can now basically take your work, your intellectual property, which is basically an asset, and even mortgage it to get a loan from the community. So you'd be able to fund or finance any future work you want to create. And you can do that without a bank, without anything, just your crypto wallet, your community support, and the blockchain. And the most beautiful thing of all that is that the demand for creative jobs, thanks to Web3, is going to increase in terms of experience design, creators for virtual reality experiences, augmented reality, digital art, gaming, communication, and so on and so forth. So the future for the creative economy and for the creators, seems very bright when it comes to Web3. So that's why I personally am very excited to see how that's going to unfold. Reaching to Web3 and type design. Now, having understood all those concepts, I'm just going to display an example of a platform called Font Community. And I'm not promoting them here, to be honest. I'm just displaying them as a case. They haven't been very active, so they're still in an infancy stage. They're still developing. But I'm going to use this just to display the potential of how type can play out, or type design, or type designers can actually make use of the blockchain in different ways. So you as a type designer, you were able to sketch it, have this whole trail of evidence and proof of ownership of your work. You have a public record of it. It's done, you digitize your font, and now you are ready to publish it. You could go to a publisher in order for them to sell it for you, and they have to approve it and publish it. Or you can simply go onto a platform which is community-based, blockchain-based, and you can put it up there, create an NFT for it, which is basically a deed of ownership, okay, a token of ownership, and then say, listen guys, this is my font, okay, who would like to buy it? People might want to buy it, for example, take full ownership of the font, so then you can easily transfer ownership of that font to them. You can fractionalize ownership. So one type can be owned by multiple users, and they all can make money. So if, let's say, you don't have money to create that type, you could simply say, okay, listen, guys, I'm doing this type design. I'm willing to have 10 owners that can co-share it. Those owners would kind of prepay the amount to fund your work, and they become co-owners of the work. So once it gets sold, they will get profits on it. If you have your type on the blockchain as well, you can mortgage it as a collateral and borrow money to fund it as well, if you don't want to have several owners. And once you even put it as a collateral, you can even earn interest on it, and so on and so forth. So the potential of doing your own NFT that's connected to your type, and having your community support it, co-own it, co-share it, lend money, will help you, or will help facilitate you to grow as a type designer and manage the ownership and the royalty of that work in a way that is sustainable. So every time that type gets resold even, you can have returns on it too. So that is basically where we stand today when it comes to type design and the blockchain and NFT. I hope it was clear. I tried to make it as simple as possible, because if you want to go deep into everything, it's going to be very complex. But there is great potential for creators. And this doesn't apply only for type designers. Any creator of any sort can really do all this stuff that I just explained for type design in terms of transferring ownership, co-sharing and co-owning, borrowing money, and earning interest on their work. I hope that was clear, and I'm ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, now we open the room for questions. You may raise your hand or like just state the question or text it in the chat box if you'd like. Okay, there are 9 questions from Bahia.
9 questions, okay.
Yeah.
So the first question is, does type design fall under copyright? Yes, of course, because you are basically authoring a type or a font. So you are the author of that type, and hence it falls under the copyright ownership. And one important note about copyright ownership is there's a thing called the Berne Convention. And this was like an agreement done in the 1800s by several nations who actually signed it. And that convention basically provides an automatic protection for an author. So the minute you author something, so be it type design or a book or whatever, you are granted automatic protection of your work. Believe it or not, it exists. And it has been updated several times, and many people and many countries right now are part of this convention. However, although it grants you automatic protection, yet you still need to be able to prove that you own it. So you still need to apply those 3 rules that I explained at the beginning: intangible transferring into tangible, having a clear trail of evidence, and having a public record of it. So that's 1. 2, if you cater to a global audience, where do you register your ideas? Well, because of the Berne Convention, you're technically protected in all the countries that are part of it. And I think there's around 130 countries that are part of this convention. And in any court, if you're able to produce the evidence or the proof of ownership with a public record of it, this can easily facilitate you winning a case in any court. So you don't really need to register the idea in every single country. You have that facility. There's a system called the Madrid system. You can go to the WIPO, that's part of the UN, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, if you need additional protection in every single country, but that's going to cost you a fortune. As long as you follow those 3 basic rules that I explained, you're good to go. Where do I start? Third question is, where do I start if I want to register my ideas in blockchain, and who are the managers of the blockchain? And how is it protected against fraud? Good question. So the platform that we're providing as Silverline, which is a technology that's provided by a company based in Germany as well. So we don't really own the technology. So it's just a facilitating tool for it. So the tool we're providing is basically, you get the vault, you open an account, like any platform that you sign up with. And in that account, you have a vault with an encryption key that you type in and issue, and you will get access to your projects. In that platform, you will upload your files, and the platform is actually connected to the timestamping authority of the European Union and the timestamping authority of China. They're official government authorities that are connected to our system. So the minute you upload the files and certify them, our system will talk to the timestamp authorities of both the EU and China, and they will digitally stamp your files. So there is a government record of that, and then that is recorded on the blockchain. Now, if Silverline closes down, or the company that is providing it closes down, your files still live on the blockchain because the files are saved on the decentralized storage system. So you still have access to them. And in that way, it's pretty much protected. There's, so when you say fraud, I'm not sure if you mean like, what if I uploaded work that is similar to somebody else's work? So the system doesn't kind of do this comparison, whether your work is similar to other people's work. All it does is registers it and timestamp it. So if you happen to create the work and timestamp it before somebody else who did a similar work, then you have leverage in court. If they did it before you, they have more leverage in court as well than you. Fourth question, what is Silverline? How do I join it? Well, it's pretty much simple. You can go to our website, it's silverline.me. And on that platform, it's recommended that you join our community, which is free of charge. And basically, DM me and request saying, hey, Wakeem, I would like to use your blockchain platform. And I'll get online with you, set up your account, show you how it works. And you can start uploading your files and certifying them. As simple as that. It's all like a drag and drop and clicking a button. It's literally that simple. So silverline.me and joining the community would be the first step. Fifth question, who decides the value of NFTs? So the value of the NFT is decided by the owner, by you. Okay, so if you are a reputable type designer or somebody starting off, you'll have to see what's on market for somebody of an equal standing and see how they're pricing their work, and accordingly you'll price it. And obviously, the more you build your community, the more people are using your fonts, the better you're working on your communication, on your reputation, the value of your type will increase. So as it increases, if it gets sold or transferred from one owner to the other, then you also make more money out of that because a smart contract is managing it. So your percentage or your commission on every sale will increase with time. But it's always constant work, growing the community, growing your reputation, and improving your work, obviously. Sixth question, which blockchain would you advise creatives for the Arab region to join? Well, for NFTs, the most common blockchain is Ethereum, and it's layer 2 blockchain, which is Polygon. So if you go now onto the marketplaces for NFT, and the most common one is called OpenSea. OpenSea currently uses Ethereum and Polygon, and it just added Solana. So you can join in, connect your crypto wallet to it, and then drag and drop your digital art to create your NFT. And once you create your NFT, you can decide, I want to issue it on Ethereum, I want to issue it on Polygon, or I want to issue it on Solana. Ethereum is the most secure so far, or Polygon, because they're interconnected. Solana has grown very fast. It's good, but it might have some security issues. So my advice always is to kind of go with the old traditional one that has proven itself. That's Ethereum. Although it's a bit more expensive, because every time you need to issue an NFT, you have to pay some sort of what they call a gas fee. So it's like you're paying for the transaction for Ethereum to take money in order to maintain itself. So it's more expensive than the others, but it's it has more security, basically. Seventh question. What happens when a user loses their small storage? Is it backed up elsewhere? So again, as I explained, it's not centralized storage. So it's not like it's on one computer, and if that computer breaks down, you lose it. Your files are basically stored on a decentralized system, so they're present on multiple computers. It's called an IPFS system. It's basically, it stands for Interplanetary Filing System. It's a very strange name for it, but that's what it's called. So your files are saved on the IPFS, and they're stored on multiple computers securely, of course. So there's no way you could lose those files. And those files are basically connected to your NFT. So there is a proof of connection between them. Yeah, that's basically how it works. Eighth question, what is the relationship between cryptocurrency and normal currency? Is there one? So cryptocurrency, when it was first created, it was called programmable currency. So it's technically a software, a line of code. And when you look at it today, yes, people are saying, well, we can use it to buy and sell things and so on and so forth. Fine, but still, I mean, you need real money to start with. So technically you're buying in dollars, although it might be in the form of a Bitcoin or Ethereum, but you're actually starting off with real money. So it's more of a token rather than actual currency, but that token is programmable. So because you're able to program it, you're able to connect it to smart contracts, and hence you're able to create lots of transparency and traceability for it. So how it's going, where it's going, to whom it's going, and so on and so forth. I like to see cryptocurrency or the fungible token more as if it's a stock or a share that you're buying into. So if I have one Bitcoin, it's as if I have one share in the Bitcoin technology or Bitcoin blockchain. And its value changes based on how many users use it, how many users trust it. So it goes up and down. So that's basically the logic how you said. We still need real money, probably become digital. But again, the cryptocurrency has a very different role. And I think with time, it's going to evolve into something like, what I feel it's going to evolve into just stocks and certificates of ownerships or deeds of ownerships, which is the NFT. The 9th question, what should young artists do to connect with the community to support them to sell their NFTs? Well, that's a big question. Artists basically need to build their reputation. They need to constantly create work, and they need to constantly communicate their work. In many cases, usually agents used to do that, but now with blockchain, the work is really more on the artist. They can have advisors with them or consultants on how to communicate their work, but really the space of Web3 or blockchain gives them more of a one-to-one interaction with the community, so there's a more genuine relationship with them. And through that, they'll be able to also build more genuine experiences with their community. So you could be selling a type through an NFT, but you can also combine to that NFT certain perks. So you could provide, access to your space for the people who buy your NFT, and like a membership access. You could provide them with a specific experience or discounts later on, or whatever you could think of as an artist or a creator. So you are basically really the person at the forefront as an owner to engage that community. And it is something, yes, it requires more work and more effort, but it will pay off much more on the long run. More work and more effort is because you need to constantly communicate with your community, constantly engage with them, and constantly creating experiences with them. But that eventually will pay off into your livelihood. I think I answered all the questions, right?
Yes, and no one typed any other questions. I have 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Of course.
I was a bit perplexed between the first section and the second section and the third section of like the cryptocurrencies. I understand the third one doesn't interact with the previous 2 ones, which is the cross one. I just wanted to know, so is, for instance, Polygon a smaller unit of Bitcoin, or can 10 Polygon units buy a piece of Bitcoin? Is that
so, yes.
Is that
so
true?
so basically Polygon, like any other blockchain, it has its own token. It's called Matic, and each token has a certain value in real money. And the exchange platform, such as Binance, is a space where you can actually exchange a Polygon with a Bitcoin or an Ethereum. So you kind of so you can actually do that. Polygon is still very low in value because it's just starting, not like Bitcoin has been around for a long time. But that is something you can do through the exchange platforms.
Okay. You also mentioned that Web3 and like the NFTs being like created opens like a lot of opportunities for designers because of the AR and VR and like the numerous design works that is needed for the field. Is there any like main software that they usually use? Like for instance, in the VR, is it Maya or Blender, or is it even something specific, or is it a bunch of softwares together?
So VR experiences and AR experiences right now, they are coded in different ways. It's actually the regular coding languages that are being used, but it's being enhanced with graphics and stuff like that, obviously. Now, the connection between the NFT and VR experiences or the metaverse is basically having a deed of ownership that's connected to your identity. So, so basically, if you want to experience a specific virtual reality, okay, only you who is identified with this specific NFT will be able to access it. So you provide them with this NFT, which has a specific code that the VR unit or platform or website will be able to read it and accordingly provide you with the experience. Now that experience can be coded in different languages at the end of the day. So Meta, for example, is creating their own code and experience. You have Sandbox, you have Decentraland, and they're becoming very numerous right now. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you for your answer. And thank you for the talk generally. It was very insightful. I guess we don't have any questions other than the ones that you have previously answered.
My pleasure.
It was nice seeing you, and we'll be sending you the recording of this talk on your email soon.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Hussein, and thank you very much, Bahia, for the invitation. I hope this was helpful for everybody attending and who's going to watch the recording too. And I look forward for more collaboration.
Sorry, we have a question by Nabil.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, it just popped in.
Just,
yes.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the legality of accessing blockchain cryptocurrencies from within the MENA region, concerns and challenges. Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. So, so right now, I mean, 2022 in general is basically labeled by all the cryptopreneurs and the crypto geeks and everybody as the regulatory year. So you will notice that there's a high volatility in the value of crypto that is going up and down very strongly. And that's because, obviously aside from the wars and stuff, but there's a high engagement from governments to regulate it. Now, in the Arab region, the first countries to start regulating it were the United Arab Emirates and the Kingdom of Bahrain. So they, first off, their financial authorities are regulating the exchange platforms over there. So there are two platforms right now in the Arab world that have been provided the license from financial authorities, and they are BitOasis and Rain. So from that end, if you work with those platforms, you're legally covered and protected. So if somebody accesses your wallet somehow, one way or the other, and they rip you off, you can actually file a complaint, and the cybercrime department or whatever that is called, they'll be after them. The other thing is when it comes to NFTs or digital assets in general, only the UAE has provided laws today for that. So for example, if you're in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and you want to sell NFTs, your company needs to have the license to be able to do so, because they're considering them as if you have a real estate investment company. So you're actually dealing with assets, but they're virtual. So they're becoming regulated, and that's a good thing. Although blockchain in principle, it's decentralized, it's sort of anti-government, anti-corporate, but there has to be a balance between the centralization of governments and the decentralization of the blockchain, because you still need their support in terms of being able to identify fraud, go after the people who are committing fraud or scams, get the police, to catch them and all that. So you still need government support in that sense. So it's a good thing that regulations happen, as long as the governments don't take over the blockchains like how they did in China, where they canceled all blockchains and they created their own blockchain for the country, which defies the whole point. Because you as a user need to own your data, need to own your identity because of blockchain. I hope that answers your question, Nabil. Good.
Okay, I guess that's it. We don't have any questions unless someone has another question.
If somebody has any question, I mean, if they join our community on civilline.me, I'm just going to type it up here. they can simply join the community and ask me any question. I'll be more than happy to help. Actually, it's there. You can even follow us on Instagram too. So feel free to ask me, just DM me. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Wakeem.
Thank
You
you.
have a nice
Wakeem.
evening. Thank you, Baya.
Amazing. Thank you very much. This was brilliant.
Great, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. You get well soon as well.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank
All
you.
right, good
Hussein.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.